In today's other video, a large format 3D printer, as I wing a couple of very unique subwoofers. Alright, let's just cold open to the reveal. This is the QIDI MAX4, and if you count yourself among those who use large printers to print large objects, no doubt you've racked up your fair share of lifted edges and other thermally adjacent print failures. The MAX4 resolves all this with a chamber heater, thus reducing the thermal gradient along the height of the print, and to keep the filament from transitioning before it gets to the nozzle, an external chiller is provided to cool the path. As a benchtop appliance, the machine commands a sizable footprint, enough to warrant some impromptu woodcraft, and doubly so as it also weighs in at nearly 50 kilos, making cheap flat-pack furniture something of a gamble. But with a sturdy base, as confirmed by these two, the machine takes its place in the studio and the setup continues, though not for long, as the instant we go to home the nozzle... I think we're missing an end stop. And after a factory reset, the initial diagnostic fails across the board, only to assert that the machine is in perfect working order, never mind this abnormal MCU status. So, barely a minute into the video and I'm already advised to pop the back cover for a quick inspection. And what do you know? Pretty sure this Y-axis ribbon cable should be plugged into the Y-axis header. Not optimal. At any rate, that appears to have been the problem, and now the machine homes like a champ, greenlighting the rest of the setup, namely the QIDI box and this thermoelectric cooler, which I have a place for just down here. A 28-minute speed benchy, Galaxy Black from Prusa, and yeah, looks like a 28-minute speed benchy. Here's a purge bin made with Bamboo Lab's high-flow PETG, and that's actually really good, even Sophie's left impressed. Speaking of, here's a pack of sewing needles she just bought and asked if I could design some kind of a storage box. So here's like 3 minutes worth of CAD, and given that I have the MAX4 at the ready, let's just give it a quick slice and send it off to production. Once again, a solid rendition, and here's Sophie's initial look at the results.
How does the thing work? What is this? There we go. It goes that way. Ooh! Look at that!
Anyway, let's call this operational and talk about speakers. Right away, you may have just watched the video where I introduced the short stack, a 2000 arc concentric array with frequency coverage of 60 Hz through 18 kHz. In this video, we'll focus on the lower half, and to keep up with the upper half, I selected a pair of the MX6-22 high excursion subwoofers from Dayton Audio. Side-firing in a reaction force cancelling arrangement, the two drivers operate in a shared chamber with a folded waveguide tuned for a well-controlled extension clear across 25 Hz. A couple of wings to direct any mechanical noise from the drivers down toward the carpet, and some feet to widen the base of support, improving lateral stability once the array is seated on top. Here's how the 380 by 380 by 120 model fits the build volume, simultaneously revealing just how much of the exterior was designed around the indicated exclusion areas of this 390 by 390mm build plate. And to give it the absolute best chance at success, here's some carbon fiber reinforced PETG from Bamboo Lab. It has about the lowest thermal expansion coefficient of any conventional filament, high rigidity, and build plate adhesion that's just shy of a chemical bond. Combined with a heated chamber and a temperature-controlled filament path, this could very well be the setup to finally print from one end stop to the other. Let's find out. The chamber temperature is set to 50 degrees, the cover slides shut, trapping in the heat, and off we go. Here's a bit of the first layer, and all is well, looking very nice in fact with that matte texture. Here's the first trace of the infill pattern, and here's me trying to do something about the rubber hose binding up against the glass cover. Nevertheless, a day or so into the print and everything is still on track. Even at a full centimeter of nothing but a dense 20% gyroid structure, the print remains perfectly flat. And then, out of nowhere, a layer shift. That is quite the hiccup for a closed-loop motor system. Thankfully, this is only about $30 worth of filament. A second attempt gives me a chance to do something about this chiller tube, bunching up and dragging against the glass cover. Seems like this should have been a corrugated hose. Nevertheless, here we go again, this time keeping a close eye on the kinematics, just to ensure that my orange wrap is compliant enough to bend with the drag chain. Everything looks to be in order, although the machine does like to be reminded of the proper chamber temperature, which I had already set earlier. Once again, however, there is a layer shift. To some ancillary credit, the print did remain flat. They both have, and the build plate adhesion is not for the weak of forearm. As for the underside, that is just what it looks like. Thankfully, this is only about $30 worth of filament. One last attempt, as the folks over at QIDI offered nothing more than to look over my print files. Here's some extra carbon fiber just for good measure, and off we go, looking about as promising as any other time. However, once we reach some 8 to 12 millimeters in height, there is invariably a layer shift, though not in any consistent direction, so let's just let it fail a while longer and see where it goes. Long story short, it only gets worse. Far worse. In fact, I'm rather surprised that no crash or spaghetti detection registered any of this as a problem. Thankfully, this is only about $30 worth of filament. And just to run out the remainder of the spool, here is a 50% scale rendition. Yet again, off to a good start, however, this time also to a good finish. At least, I'm certain that it would have finished with a tad more filament left on the spool. Just in time, the very next firmware update had this effect on the LED bar and left the two independent Z motors running on the side. And after I was advised to remove the back cover a second time, namely to probe the AC rail with the machine still plugged into the mains, I decided that I am more interested in building awesome speakers than I am in this kind of reviewing. That being said, while I don't currently have another 3D printer large enough for the model, I do have a CNC machine that'll cut circles around it. And given that my interest is in the outcome rather than the toolchain, here's a quick iteration of the subwoofer design. Very similar in tuning, as most of the size difference comes down to the 20mm thick MDF walls displacing a lot more of the internal volume. Each layer is 19mm thick, 12 layers per enclosure, and the assembly process, while tedious and inefficient, results in some incredibly strong woodwork. There's also a matter of processing, most of which boils down to sanding and a bit of paint. The assembly continues with these 3D printed terminal plates, each housing two sets of binding posts for the drivers to be powered individually. Everything attaches with 25mm stainless steel wood screws and a thin pad of reusable adhesive to prevent vibration. To that effect, all the speaker cables are also wrapped in closed cell foam, and the perimeter of each terminal plate opening is gasketed to ensure a proper air seal. Here's a convenient 4-pack of the Dayton Audio subwoofers, and these are all wired in series to match the load rating on my amplifier. Everything is soldered for maximum conductivity, and with the first driver sunk into the baffle, I decided to give the MAX4 one last chance to contribute. The wings aren't so big that I couldn't print them on the Excel, but with QIDI's assurance, following yet another firmware update, I elected to sacrifice the remainder of this Prussian and PETG just to see what's what. As per usual, everything starts out normal, the supports, the infill, all resolving according to the G-code, and for structural reasons, I'm using 5 perimeters all the way around with a 40% gyroid infill pattern. 10 hours from start to finish and we have a successful print. And then we have another one. And 2 more after that, all completing without defects. So let's just chalk that up as a win, get some reusable adhesive on there for damping, and attach the piece, which then doubles as a temporary base while I install the opposite driver. Afterwards, and with the other wing attached, a quick RTA sweep confirms the 25Hz extension, though even at a mere 75 centimeters of the ground and 90 degrees off axis, a deep 35Hz null appears dead smack in the middle of the operating range. Not a concern, as the predicted response is calculated on axis using 1/8 space boundary conditions. In other words, down there in a corner, not up here midway across the room. Satisfied with the sweep, I prepare to dampen the wings for the other enclosure, which evidently isn't the immediate priority. Luckily, I'm not on the schedule. Once fully assembled, the 2 subwoofers are further built out to form these concentric arrays. Then, with everything in place and all the processing disabled, the response at the listening position clears 20 Hz with very little to correct between there and the crossover point. Nevertheless, prior to any kind of a serious break-in, I apply a conservative 27Hz high-pass filter, a 60Hz upper end cutoff, and a rough gain match with the 2 concentric arrays. There will be a demo of the subwoofers toward the very end, however, there's also a few things that beg to be said about the MAX4. Right away, after the 4 wings, the very next thing I attempted to print was this laptop tray I designed for Sophie's workbench. However, at every attempt, the machine would only advance so far as to wipe the nozzle, then immediately pause with no option to resume. And this persisted with every subsequent model I sent to print. Listen, I don't personally know anyone else with a YouTube channel, so I have no behind-the-scenes insight into how these kinds of fuck-ups are normally triaged, but from my experience, the MAX4 does not meet the bar, and I'd be skeptical of any positive review that doesn't actually demonstrate the advertised build volume being successfully populated, if merely to establish whether or not the features put in place to prevent edge lifting actually work. And I say this in hopes that some reviewer actually does, in which case, never mind what I said. Until then, don't forget to rate the video as you see fit, subscribe if you're so inclined, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers! Did you get all the stuff?
Yep.
Alright. I want to send it. Do I just press it?
Click. Please actually work.
Already? That was quick, or is it something else you can do?
No, that's it.
See if we can get smacked by one. Maybe it'll be louder. That's pretty good, actually. I feel that. Where's all the other cuts?
On the way, coming down the street behind you.
Yeah.
There.
There you go.